Okay guys, in this video I'm just going to quickly go over the 4.1 through 4.3 quiz review, explaining how I'm getting each of the answers. I will not be taking time to show my calculator. I will not be doing a screencast. So if you are needing explicit directions on how to find each of the functions on the calculator, please go back and watch the 4.3 or 4.2, 4.3 video that is posted on Canvas that Ms. Campbell made for that lesson. So starting out, I'm just going to go over these real quick, noticing on number one that it is in standard form, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and write standard form for the start. Because that lead coefficient is positive, I know it's opening up. So the end behavior is going to be rising on both sides. I'm going to go ahead and type that function into my calculator. So I'm going to hit the y equals button, type in x squared minus 4x minus 1. I hit graph. I do notice it is confirmed that it is opening up. And when it opens up, I always have a minimum. Okay. The axis of symmetry I can do one of two ways. I can use that negative b over 2a formula for what y equals. For what x equals. Change that to an x equals, which would put me negative b, or the opposite of b would be 4 over 2 times 1 would be x equals 4 over 2 times 1 is my a, and 4 divided by 2 equals 2. My axis of symmetry is 2. I know that that then goes into my vertex as 2. I also could have calculated that by finding the minimum using my calculator. And when I do that, I find that the minimum is 2, negative 5. Okay, the end behavior left is rising, as well as the end behavior right. Okay, it says if factored form, find the zeros. Well, that's not applicable. The range, the lowest point on the graph is that negative 5. We don't have a highest point because it goes on to infinity. Domain, just like every quadratic, never stops going left, never stops going right. Any x value works. Number of zeros, if I look at my graph again on the calculator, I can see that I have 2 zeros. The y-intercept is that c value from my standard form, which is y equals negative 1. I can also see that on my calculator. In the table, the y-intercept, if I look there, is 0, negative 1. Okay, so either one of those would be correct, y equals negative 1 or 0, negative 1. Okay, let's go ahead and finish this off with increasing, decreasing, and then we'll plot our key points on the graph. Increasing is going to start at the vertex, okay? It decreases until the vertex and then starts increasing from the vertex. So our increasing interval, it starts at 2 and goes on to infinity. And our decreasing interval is negative infinity to 2, okay? If you want, if that helps, to go ahead and plot the graph first before you do increasing, decreasing, go ahead and do that. So I'm going to go ahead and plot, first off, my y-intercept at negative 1, then my vertex at 2, negative 5, down here. I do know that we have symmetry. We have an axis of symmetry running down that vertex, so I do have another point there at 4, negative 1, corresponds with the y-intercept. And then I can just kind of sketch it. I'm looking at my calculator also to kind of look at what's going on with the graph. And that's more or less what the graph looks like. And I'm done. So you can see that decreasing and then increasing interval there. All right, moving on to number 2. I'm going to take a minute to type that in my calculator. Y equals negative 3x squared minus 6x minus 9. Made a few mistakes, a few typos there. I didn't delete the previous one first, so I re-entered it. Negative 3x squared minus 6x minus 9. I'm going to look at the graph. Oh, it's opening down. That's the first thing I noticed. If it opens down, I have a max. Okay, let's go back up to the top. Well, that's standard form again. The y-intercept is that c, that negative 9. And that plays out also on my graph. Notice how I'm jumping around when I'm doing these answers. There is no correct order. Number of zeros, I don't have any x-intercepts, so I have none. So that's different than if factored form, the zeros, right? That's the NA. That's not applicable because it's not in factored form. We do want to put the number of zeros, either none, or we could say, or just 0, which is the number of zeros also, okay? Domain never stops going left, never stops going right. The range, well, we don't have a low point. We start at negative infinity. That's as low as it goes, keeps going to infinity. And then the high point is the max. Okay, well, let's find that max. I'm gonna do second, calculate on my calculator, hit the number 4 for maximum. My left boundary, I'm gonna make sure to scroll to the left of the max. Now I'm gonna scroll to the right of the max, and I get 0, negative 9. That's my vertex. Oh, I'm sorry, that was a typo. I did not hit enter enough times. Let me correct that. Sorry, guys. Negative 1, negative 6. I had one more time I had to hit enter, and I didn't do that. And then I looked at my graph, and 0, negative 9 made no sense. So that was my y-intercept. So my max is at negative 1, negative 6, which means that my axis of symmetry is x equals negative 1. In behavior left is falling. In behavior right is falling. If we look, there's my y-intercept at 0, negative 9 that we talked about earlier. My vertex at negative 1, negative 6, so that's 3 above negative 9. Then I have my symmetry spot there. I can draw my graph that's going to look like my calculator. Okay, so we're increasing from negative infinity to negative 1. Always x values on increasing and decreasing. Negative 1 to infinity is my decreasing. Okay? My range then, I have to go back and finish that, was negative infinity to negative 6. Okay, very important that we use that bracket and only y values on the range. So I want to point something out real quick. I'm going to highlight, we have the negative 1 in the axis of symmetry. That's the x value of the vertex. That's also going to be our stopping point for, or changing point for the increasing, decreasing, okay? Then the y value of the vertex at negative 6 is going to be what we use in our range every single time, okay? All right, on the next one, number 3 through 6, but actually, as we go to page 2, you'll also, okay, so back to this video. I think the video actually just jumped, so you guys didn't catch that. But number 9 goes with 3 through 6. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and type this equation into my calculator. I do not want to do negative b over 2a on that. I'm going to get a decimal or a fraction on that. So I'm going to go ahead and just type this into my calculator and find all the information out. Okay, so I'm going to hit y equals. I'm going to clear what I have in there now, something I didn't do last time. And I'm going to go ahead and instead of t, I'm going to type in x, right? So negative 16x squared plus 60x plus 4. Let's look at the graph. When I hit graph to start out with, It's not looking very good. Okay, I just have a couple lines, one going pretty much right next to the y-axis, and another one that's dropping down and crosses the x-intercept at or the x-axis at between 3 and 4. But I can't see a lot. So I'm going to change my window. I'm going to change my zoom first. I'm going to hit zoom button, which is in the middle up top. And I'm going to hit zoom 9, I believe it's zoom fit, right? Zoom 0 for zoom fit. And take a look at how that looks now. Okay, I can see my graph now, but I can't see the max very well. I have a lot of the graph that's in the negative because this graph falls to negative infinity. So I'm going to adjust my window. When I hit window, my y-min is at negative 2,196, and my y-max is at 60. I want more y-max and less y-min. So I'm going to adjust my y-min. I know what's happening there. The in behavior is just falling towards negative infinity. I'm not really too concerned about all that negative, so I'm going to change that to negative 50. And then I'm going to change my y-max to, right now it's at 60, so that tells me the vertex is somewhere around 60. I'm going to change that to 100, so I can just see a little bit above the vertex. So now my y-min's at negative 50, my y-max is at 100, and I'm going to look at the graph again and make sure this looks good. Much better looking graph, okay? So now I'm going to look at the questions. The first question is, what is the maximum? Okay, to find the maximum, I'm going to go to my calculator and find the max. So I hit second, trace, and I'm going to push number 4 for maximum. And it wants my left boundary. I'm to the left of the vertex, to the left of the maximum. And I hit enter, and then I go to the right of the vertex or right of the maximum and hit enter again. And it asks me if I want to guess what the vertex is. Yes. And it comes up as 1.875, and then the y value is 60.25. So the max height is going to be that y value, right? That's the height, and then the x value is time. So my max height is 60.25 feet. All right, how many seconds will it take for the ball to reach the maximum height? Okay, seconds was my t, or time, and we used x in our calculator for that. And so the x value at the maximum was 1.875 seconds. Okay, moving on. When will the ball hit the ground? Well, I have 2 zeros, but one of them's in the negatives, right? And the other one is positive. I only want the one that's positive. I cannot go back in time. So a negative x value is irrelevant to me on this question, okay? So I am going to calculate the 0. Second, trace. Number 2 is the 0. And I again want a left boundary and a right boundary. Right now, my left boundary that's coming up is at the vertex, which is to the left of the 0. So I hit enter. Then I'm going to move my little cursor to the right of the 0, which is below the x-intercept. So I hit enter again, and then enter again on the guess, and it says 3.8155, and my y is 1e to the negative 11. When we see those e's to negative 11, that's just scientific notation for 0, or for a number really, really close to 0. So that's a good answer. My x value is 3.82. I'm going to round it to the nearest 100th on this one. So when will the ball hit the ground? 3.82 seconds. Okay. How high will the ball be after 1.9 seconds? So on this one, I'm given an x value of 1.9. That's my x. And I want to find the corresponding y. So I hit second, calc. and I want a value, which is 1, and it asked me to enter in my x value. Well, my x value is 1.9, so I hit enter. My y value is 60.24. So 60.24 feet. Okay, let's move on. See that this number 9 here also goes with 3 through 6. Sorry about the formatting error. That was actually my fault. Problem number 9. When will the ball be at least 22 feet in the air? Okay, there are 2 answers on this. So I'm going to go ahead and draw a second line on my calculator. So y equals 22. Look at my graph. And I have 2 intersecting points. So I'm going to use second calc, and I want the intersect. Number 5. I'm on the left side, so I hit enter twice, and I see that my first intersection is at 0.33 seconds. And then I can move on to the second answer, which will be my second intersection. So I hit second, calculate, 5. I'm going to move to the right, enter, 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 and I get 3.42 seconds. Okay, let's go back and look at 7 and 8 now, okay? Hot tip about 7 and 8. Those aren't on the quiz. If you took the time to watch the video, that's a nice tip, okay? If you want to go over those, I'm happy to help you with that. Just send me an email and I will walk you through those. But we're going to move on to the ones that are relevant to the test, okay? Or to the quiz. So on number 10 through 14, this problem is extremely similar to the ones that we just did on 5 through 9. But they're just a different equation. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and hit y equals. I'm going to change my equation. Instead of negative 16x squared plus 60x plus 4, I'm going to change that to 120x plus 100. Excuse me, negative 16x squared plus 120x plus 100. And I want to make sure to delete my y equals 22 line that I had on the last one. And I'm going to hit graph. Hopefully this equation's a little better when I look at my window. It's not, it doesn't quite fit. I'm going to go ahead and hit zoom 0 again for zoom fit. Then I can go look at my window. My y min again is at negative 1380, way too much y min. I'm going to change that to negative 100. My y max is at 220. I'm going to switch that to 300. Those are arbitrary numbers. I'm just trying to adjust them. I don't need all that negative though still, okay? Now I look at my graph. Okay, pretty good drawing. What is the maximum height of the fireworks? So it started at 120 feet. I want my max, second calc, number 4. Go to the left of the max, enter. Go to the right of the max, hit enter. And my max is 220 feet. Okay. How many seconds will it take for it to reach the max? We're at basically 0 there. I would say this probably wasn't a great question, but it is 0 seconds on that because our max is right at 0. Okay. When will the firework hit the ground? We'll find that 0, second calc, 2, left, and right, at 3.71 seconds. How high will the firework be after 6.4 seconds? That's not going to be relevant because that's going to be negative. It's going to already hit the ground. 1, 6, 4, enter. Negative 435.36. That doesn't make sense though, because that would be below ground. So that's kind of an NA also. When will it be 280 feet in the air? Well, if we look at our max, 220. If our max is 220, will it ever be 280? Nope. So these are both non-applicable. Okay. This was not a great question that Mr. Burkett made. My apologies, guys. Anyway, let Miss Campbell, Miss Gonzalez, or myself know if you have any questions. Be happy to help. Thank you. And good luck on your quiz.